Hey fam, thanks for clicking that button. You're about to see an episode of I'm Telling You Part 2, where we get into the pyramids even deeper. What are those shafts for? We're going to say it's a power plant, just like Tesla said. So here it is with me, Philly D, and Mr. Gemini, about to get into it. We'll see you in a hot second, fam.
I'm telling you, man.
I like the fact that we've been discussing a lot of the things about the pyramid. Specifically the speculation that it's possibly a power generator, going back to Tesla's ideas and building his coils and, Wardenclyffe Tower and all that kind of stuff. But we've been having that discussion prior to all of this new stuff coming out. And to me, it almost adds validation of like, we were right. Just saying.
Well, the question for me for a long time has been like, well, what is it? Because it's obviously not a tomb. I mean, that's proven fact. It's not a tomb.
It's not a tomb. But yeah, agreed. There's been no evidence of any kind to say that this is where they're housing sarcophaguses and all. Like, there's none of that.
Sarcophagi?
I don't know if it's Latin or Greek, but well, that dictates how it's pluralized. But yeah, there's definitely been more information. I won't call it evidence. There's been consistent enough information that it does point to the fact that the pyramid is most likely a power generator or power collector, something that allows for consolidation and then emitting, but it also has to be way older than what had been previously stated, as well as the means to build it. We obviously, as humans, did not build this without extra technology or extra beings or information from a higher knowledge. They had to have had better technology or more advanced civilization.
So in reference to the new information coming out about the substructure or the possible substructure of the, it's not just the one pyramid, is it? I can't tell because it seems like different people portray it different ways, but basically this substructure underneath the Giza Plateau itself.
With the possible underground city.
Well, that was another speculation, a different video that I hadn't yet watched, but
yeah, I'm questioning. What do you mean by
the rods? They look wells, basically. They look like, I guess,
with the shafts.
And I have a problem with this too because like the scans that I've seen that have gone public, they seem to be showing an image, and then they quickly flash over to an image of like a CGI or an AI rendering of what that would look like.
Only because it's probably a clear depiction, because the scans are going to be very grainy. Or
the view they're showing is a side view, as if you were down in it looking at it, basically. Okay. So how did they get that as a scan? Wouldn't it be like at an angle above it? If you're getting it like from space,
you should be able to get a 3D rendering if you do multiple scans, as well as I would assume the scan isn't going, straight down. It's probably more of an angle. It's probably got some form of a spread to it. Yeah, I wouldn't say straight
down, but like, would it?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
It didn't seem like you could get that image from the image they showed.
From multiple scans in multiple positions, you're basically using a computer model or, computer system or software to generate that model coming from those. So what you were
looking at isn't really, visually it doesn't give you the full picture.
Yeah, it just gives you a vertical shot, but because of the density and the way it structures, but again, because you're doing, back and forth, left and right, and you're going over that spot in so many different fashions, you can start to formulate structures. And the consistent structure that and the consistent structure that they're putting together is there's several shafts that go from the bottom of the pyramid into the bedrock, like 2 kilometers deep.
Yeah, and I just wasn't sure about how much of that was speculation. And basically the other argument is that this is a method of using a technology that we haven't used it quite like this before. Like there's no precedent for it. So the way that they're using this particular technology with basically an algorithm that involves Doppler technology.
Okay.
So it's like watching something in movement on the surface tells you more about what's underneath by the way that the hollow spaces in the earth will vibrate back a certain. So it's basically almost like taking a sonar X-ray, if you will.
Sure. Yeah, I can agree to that kind of idea.
But it's a use of a technology we've had for a while, not for its original purpose, though. So it's like it's a method that's very new to the market, and it's kind of unknown. So this is what I've heard in trying to follow this story. So I didn't know how much of that you had heard.
Well, so this goes to Skinwalker Ranch. They have a multitude of sensors, and they're using like LiDAR and a bunch of other things. So, I mean, you're using lasers and echo sound, all radio waves. I mean, there are tons and tons of different methods so that when they take that data and cross it, they get a very predictable model because you're picking it up across a multitude of systems. So you're getting different imagery that's being
but
predicted.
all these methods that you're talking about, they don't require like drilling into the earth or doing anything damaging. Like maybe just airspace, localized airspace.
I mean, I'm not specific on how each one works, but I do recall, especially coming from Skinwalker Ranch, because they were going into explanations on what each system was and how it operates. But yes, some will do that. It'll, depending on the density, because it'll absorb or echo back a signal. So that'll also, different components, because they were even doing a scan of the mesa, and they were able to predict like tunnels or chasms, open space. So depending on how the data as it comes back interacts with this, the stuff in the ground.
Right. So that's what this new technology is using, a similar thing where like you can only technically see this far into the ground, but that doesn't matter because in seeing the way that the earth vibrates, even like in these minuscule motions it makes, say if you're near two plates that are moving against each other, that would be enough to basically give you a digital map of something that you can't see beneath the top crust of the earth, I
mean, think about in Jurassic Park.
Based on Doppler, because the way that sound reverberates within a chamber, the way that's, like all those little details apparently can draw a fairly detailed picture of what's going on underneath, supposedly.
Let's also say, so go to Jurassic Park, and that was back in the 90s. Think about this. And they did X-ray of the ground, and they were able to dictate a skeleton of, I guess it was the raptor, I think, if I remember correctly, but it was fully detailed. The leg bones, the arms, the ribs, the spine, the head, the neck, like it was a image of the skeleton.
So this was something that was done in a movie?
Well, right,
years
but
ago.
Back in the 90s, you're talking like 3 decades almost at this point.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm using that as a reference for a visual. That's basically what they're doing. But they're not taking a single shot. They're taking multiple passes. So taking all of that data, they can then put together in a computer program, or like I said, something then assembles it. But you asked the question. They speculate, are they? And it's like, this is speculation because we haven't looked into it. We literally haven't dug into the ground and found these as structures. We're utilizing this data as the computer puts it together as we tell it to, and it's putting together a predicted shape that is a multitude of shafts coming from the base down into, 2 kilometers down into the bedrock. Into
giant, like blocks, like cubes.
Yeah.
Of some kind of a concrete
but again, that's
structure or something.
Right. And again, that's just what they're showing it as. This is so we don't know.
So you heard what I said when I first saw that, right? I said it looks like the inside of a giant battery.
Oh, right.
So that's what I was imagining right away was, okay, there's got to be a copper coil running around that thing. And it's like a giant, igneous rock that also contains lots of natural metals, maybe.
Right.
And then the two of those make your,
Anode,
diode, whatever.
Anode, cathode.
That's the first thing I thought. It looks like, it'd be like what a giant 16-volt battery.
Well, because a battery, a car battery specifically, a larger cell will have tubes in each set, and then barriers in between. And you go from the anode to the cathode. That's where the power comes, is because you're going across these cells that are wired in series so that the power is constantly ramping up. It's stacking on top of each other. So you get like the typical in a car batteries, there's 6 cells, each at like 2-ish volts a piece, which is how you get to a 12-volt battery. Because typically they're more closer at, static is like 12.6, 12.7, 12.8.
Right. So isn't it 8 sets in this case, I thought?
I think so.
So 8 sets.
Right. But I think, so while you say...
It would be an 8-volt battery, no?
Well, each cell would make whatever that power is, and the larger the cell, potentially the larger. So, but that's why my thing, while I agree with your view of it, what it looks as, representation or something, you can see it as being a battery. I go to the whole Tesla with the rods in the ground under Wardenclyffe and needing that, as well as one of the speculations on how the pyramid as a power generator would work is it needs the water that these tubes could be basically connected to. They could be giant, almost porous shafts that allow the water just to soak through.
Well, the other thing I heard was like a heat collector, like a volcanic.
But that's the thing is that could, the Earth's temperature could just be causing the natural climb because heat rises that the water would want to naturally pull up. But going back to one of the bigger things, if the pyramid is an actual power source utilizing water, as we're to possibly understand, because with the different shafts as they go back and forth, lined with different quartzes and whatnot, you're energizing or powering up or basically getting the water to separate and turn into hydrogen. You're pulling, and because of that, you're building more or less a system of power to get the pyramid to actually work.
Of a water filtration plant. I mean, you could do all kinds of things with that technology.
Right, but that's the thing is, so it's speculated that the water has to come up through, and as it goes from the different chambers through the shafts internally in the pyramid, you're pulling hydrogen and all these other things, and that's what's making the power. Well, the water has to come from somewhere. So these shafts being that deep with that much of an aquifer in the area, it doesn't matter where that level of water drops, these shafts would still be able to pull them up like straws so that the pyramid, once it's fired, would be drawing it. Like you said there, with the extra heat of the Earth, it could cause a natural up.
So again, my question is, it's a giant energy generator. And if it's that big, I mean, it must be producing like, I don't know, how many megawatt hours.
None of us could speculate this.
How many?
We're not engineers.
1.21 gigawatts.
It
I
could
have no
be.
idea.
Yeah. 220, 221, whatever it takes.
What use do you have for all that energy? Unless that was the other theory that maybe there's some other chasms down there of for quite a ways that maybe there is like a subterranean culture.
Well, so my belief is
that's where the power was going because.
Well, my belief is with all of that, if they were hiding, the city would have been underground. But who's to say that most of that city wasn't underground, and we just have layers and layers and layers upon sand that are maybe a mile deep or something? Who knows? Or half of whatever because again, these shafts go 2 kilometers. So I mean,
think about that, bro.
I have
2 kilometers.
That's a good distance.
Some people never walk that in a day. 2 kilometers that's a fairly decent distance. to go straight down. That's crazy.
But so again, that's what I'm saying is I don't think if there is an underground city, technically all of it was underground. I think some of it would have been above ground. Think almost like in Star Wars when they go to, well, just visually when they go to.
I was thinking like Disney.
Well, no, when they go to
like an underground city,
when they go to Luke, when they go to get him, and we find him, and he's that's how he runs into Obi-Wan and all that stuff. You see his domicile. There's a hut or dome on top, but then there's stacked down below.
His domicile.
A penis in the asshole. Yeah. But maybe that the city was in fact built in that fashion. So you're getting a decent amount of it underground. The other, half or third or whatever is above ground. But that means that the shafts for the pyramid would go even further down below that, which if you think about it, what if that structure looked like that? So now we're not talking about the shafts being like perforated so the aquifers can soak in. Maybe they were built on the base where it was literally pulling it from underneath of that. So maybe there's even, more substructure to these shafts than we can even speculate because we can only look so deep.
I mean, and all this is really speculation in my eyes, because like until we actually have solid answers, like it's just a funky image on a piece of paper, or a screen. It doesn't really.
Yeah, but I like this idea though, due to the fact if you remove all that sand and you can see the shafts go all the way down and they're into the bedrock. It's almost as if the pyramid would now look like the Washington Monument, but most of the lower half wouldn't be solid base. It'd just be tubes. That's what this would look like.
Well, the claim is that this was built directly beneath the lower shelf or the floor of this place where they now have discovered was it 6 different something? There was a bunch of structures inside there that all represented different things.
Well, yeah, but still, that's what I'm saying. So just even with that, if it was literally exposed, if the majority of this was above ground, what would just living there and looking at this thing, holy crap! Because think about the size,
the immensity.
Think of the size of the Washington Monument, and now all of a sudden you put it into this perspective. I mean, how much larger is the pyramid to the monument?
Oh my God, it's enormous.
So that's what I'm saying. You have like a Taj Mahal side monument or monolith, basically, that are these just shafts and then pyramid. It's freaking massive. How much power could something like that literally generate? That's why I speculated that, hey, maybe it's a charging port.
It's a charging port. It's a giant phone charger.
Right. But so maybe it's a charging port. But, also I stated, what if they're using that to tear a hole in space and time or dimensions? That's the kind of power that you would need to do this stuff.
Yeah. Oh, if it was a charging port, maybe that's why there was 8 sides to it. So it got a better grip when you plugged it in.
Or
it really settled in on the right spot.
It can only go this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. See, that's possible.
If it lands a little crooked, it just kind of rights itself naturally. And
I like it. Maybe that's why they were using the white limestone. It was nice and soft. So when it did it, it was just like a little buffer.
Well, except for what was that? What was the capstone made of?
I want to say gold.
Was that the claim, or
it was? It was definitely a conductive material.
Because bronze wouldn't be.
Well, they had gold then, and gold is the best conductor. So with this kind of technology, the assumption would be they obviously knew that gold was a better conductor than copper. But again, what would be best for them in the use of it? So whether it's literally emitting it out so that it goes across as free energy on the planet, or it's a port to plug in your ship to charge it. But so what would be the best conductor for that? I don't know. So we're just speculating again. Now, it could have been there was some residue or something to that degree where they at one point had knowledge of written down somewhere and they were able to find in the records that's what it was before it was taken. But yeah, gold or copper. I want to say it was gold.
Well, don't circuits contain gold?
Well, but
circuit boards and stuff?
Because we're aware that with our systems, we consider gold a better conductor than copper or any other metal. So again, the assumption is we know that they were obviously more advanced to have something of this technology.
Long, yeah.
So they would have most likely known that as well, and they would have used it
to us.
What was that?
Because they taught it to us.
But we don't know.
I mean, I don't know.
And again, we're just speculating because we're under the assumption that gold is the best conductive material, that they would know that as well if that's the smarter or more intelligent knowledge. We don't know that. Because again, what if copper was better? What if it was quartz and that was better? I don't know. Because again, I don't know what the power would have been used for if it was. That's why I said again, it could have been powering the planet as free energy like Tesla saw it as. It could have been powering regenerators, portals through dimensions or whatever else, or charging ginormous frickin' ships. That's a crap ton of power.
Just steam power, just for everything, just steam power.
You're burning stuff to make steam, though.
I know, it's freaking great.
It's drill, baby, drill. No, that's not. But yeah, I if this was a power generator, what in the F were we doing with that much energy, bro? And that's also speculating that we were around when this happened. This could have been a completely different civilization that may or may not have been us or us-like.
If we want to make reference to the Emerald Tablet, is that the right? Then it would be right in the halls of Amenti. That's where they basically have special chambers that keep themselves or their body, their physical body, healthy for an undisclosed period of time, or regenerate it, or what do they make, clones? I'm not even sure what goes on, but all things that sound like they would require a lot of power and technology to pull off.
Yeah.
It was always hard to tell like what exactly it is they're describing.
Well, and
because it seems like a technology that's like beyond anything we could possibly imagine, but yet one that doesn't have wires and circuits the same way that ours does.
But because again, this could have been a completely different civilization that built this. It could have been humans or humanoids.
Lizard people.
Well, that we can get into that part with the moon and all that stuff too. But again, if we were literally, us as humans as we know it today, our DNA structure that makes us, not Cro-Magnon, but Homo erectus, and then whatever, I guess there's one more after that or something. But us today, bipedal humanoids, we could have been here when this was built, or it could have been here with a previous civilization going to like Thoth. It could have been from another dimension. And what was the speculation that there are certain entities that cannot exist on this earthly plane because of the vibration, the frequency at which the planet resonates at. What if this power plant was built so that they could modify that so that these other dimensional entities could exist on this plane? So we as humans may or may not have been here while they did that.
Oh, I see. Oh. So in essence, creating an atmosphere more friendly to their organic makeup.
Correct. But again,
in order so that they could live, and that's why they're like, that's the example for why we don't see them anymore, or?
Ooh, that's a good point.
I mean, I just assume that's what you were getting at. Like,
well, I mean, I wasn't. My brain probably would have made that leap at some point.
Maybe this was a thing like a long time ago. And
again, because Thoth, from what you have stated to me, the Emerald Tablets basically said is Thoth made the pyramid, and then vibrated it into place. He brought it into fruition here.
I don't remember reading that part specifically, but I remember hearing about it when in conversation about that. So,
so going into if this entity is unable to be in this dimension on this plane because of the frequency at which it vibrates and the planet does, it wouldn't have that allowance to be here. It could create something that it could then put into place here. And then once that turned on, now all of a sudden we've modified, potential for, it could be like a giant force field in a sense where it now makes for a resonant factor that allows that entity to also exist here in this plane.
I always assumed like he built this thing in the ether. I think that's the way I described it.
Right.
But like just listening to you talk, I was like thinking, I mean, he could have created that from his own plane, whatever that is.
Well, because this goes like the aliens that we're talking about. You could be in a cardboard box, Calvin and Hobbes style, in your garage, and to us, all of a sudden, it's just this silver bullet that defies physics. Well, of course, it's not on this plane. So we view it as it's doing this, but they literally haven't gone anywhere. It's just been projected into this realm or into this plane. Like,
oh, I see what you're. Well, I suppose that's possible. I don't know. And manifest in a physical-esque form.
Well, right. Almost like holographic, but with actual depth enough that we can literally see it. We can perceive it. Because we don't hear them, apparently, but we can see them.
See a person glitch out or something.
But if you think about it, that could explain, going back to like you said, maybe they're generating this force field of some sort so that they can exist here. And now that the machine is broken, they're stuck here.
Oh, that's the claim, all right. And that's creepy. That they don't actually change their physical appearance. They change your.
We're going to lizard people on this?
Oh, yeah, that's where I heard that from. That was definitely lizard people.
Well, and I mean, honestly,
but they don't physically they don't actually change their appearance. They just change how you see them.
Correct. And that's the thing. So, I mean, I like what you were saying, the idea that if we have this mass power generation, maybe it was for that. And the fact that this no longer exists, maybe that's why we can't see them. So, we hear ghosts and ghouls and werewolves and vampires. Maybe these are interdimensional beings that couldn't be here, but because the machine was running, they were able to project into this realm. And now that it's broken, maybe they're stuck here, and that's why they're like a ghost in a sense. We can't exactly see them, but they can still interact to a certain degree with our, our plane, our realm, our stuff.
Oh, we assume it's a werewolf, but maybe it's a totally different species of.
Just another interdimensional
beings.
Yeah, well, because I think that's a more appropriate term. That's more succinct and impeccable.
Well, that actually I've grabbed onto a lot in the last couple of years because it makes more sense to me. In order to travel the kind of distances we're talking about, because a known livable planet doesn't seem that close to us that you would be able to just sit back and forth.
The nearest is 24,000 light years. So even if they traveled at the speed of light, it would take them 24,000 years to get here.
Obviously, there's some kind of folding of time-space. That's the only way I can imagine.
Well, that's why I said going back to
making it feasible.
You could go back to the idea of Calvin and Hobbes in a cardboard box, and they're imagining, they astral project, they use their energy source to then take them as a stationary object and place themselves into our time-space realm. And that's why it seems to have motion to us, because we're seeing it across time, and all they're doing is just as they're traversing from one place to another, we see it as them literally moving, but they're not. They're just in their mind or in their projection going to that position. They haven't moved at all.
Well, it just brings back the Matrix and like Agent Smith or whatever. Like he's always there. He's got eyes everywhere, always on your tail.
He's Agent Smith.
Right. Scary. Saying.
Well, and this is why I really enjoy speculating further on if the pyramids are in fact a power machine, what do we need all that energy for?
Well, that's what I was saying. I mean, you got Lord knows what other kind of stuff. I mean, we just never discovered that they had blenders and flat screen TVs, but I'm sure they did of some sort. Maybe it was projected directly onto some kind of natural crystal. And that's all we found, just shattered crystal. No big deal.
Well, and that's why, again, think about this then. What if Thoth did make the pyramid? It is a power generator, and it was here before us as humans, so that we were generated as modified DNA to an alternate living being here. So taking an animal that's not human and then getting us to be more human, godlike in his image, but they're the gods because they're of that dimension. They're a higher intelligence. If they did all of that and now we exist within it, we gain enough knowledge to be aware that there is this energy and we can harness it. But with our rudimentary tools and knowledge, the best we came up with was a wireless light bulb. I think this speaks to the idea, because going to the whole Adam and Eve thing, and you started with one human and then the second, and they basically just modified DNA. We were a science experiment until they came up with us to mine the gold. You could have this entire time span because you get them coming to this planet, generating energy so that they can come to this planet. So they bring in their power source and boom, turn it on. Now they can come here. Now they can start to do their science experiments, all for the purpose of they were literally mining gold. That would be freaking crazy, bro.
I mean, and all this stuff about these aliens you're talking about now, it's all well and good.
Not aliens. We can't interdimensional beings.
Non-terrestrial life forms. I don't.
Non-humanoid.
Native American, Indian. See,
First Nations.
Yeah, First Nations. See, I'm trying not to.
But think about that. I mean, I would say, I would just say non-humanoid.
Non-humanoid. Okay.
Not exactly us. Well, because again, what if they took an ape, orangutan, whatever, and then put their DNA into it and gave us this relative form? So while they would look humanoid, they're not exactly so, because we're of them, they're not of us. So they wouldn't be humanoid. We are humanoid because we're an expression of what that is, modified DNA. So they're whatever they are. So non-humanoid. Okay. I don't know. I'm just trying to think what's a more succinct, impeccable term.
Is that we started from apes.
No, that claims that we came from a different animal with DNA from them.
So I was going to say, all that stuff aside,
it could have been a bear. It could have been a dragon.
I think this planet, life on this planet, was made possible by the first aliens that landed, and those were fungal spores that landed here on, I don't know, however many billions of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's definitely been a speculated idea, hypothesis, which does go to the fact that pretty much everything has a relative structure towards a mycelial network.
Well, we are
root structure, brain pattern, the way our brain looks like
of the world it was brought up in.
Yeah,
it's a piece of everything.
Yeah,
so it's animal, plant, everything is in there. That's why you have certain bacteria in your body and you need them. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a lot of things that are really weird the deeper you look. I mean, there's more active cells in your body that are there to help promote your welfare that are not human skin or human flesh of some sort. There's more of those cells in your physical presence than there is of actually your cells. When you think about it, that's kind of spooky.
I love how we were on the pyramids and we got here.
Dude, you can go all over.
No, you can.
I absolutely can. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, you are a Tangentsaurus Rex.
Tangentsaurus, right?
One of those. Yeah. Then one of those guys. Yeah, but again, I like this ability to speculate if this pyramid was generating energy, what that could be used for. And
well, what's missing to hook it up again? Like when are we going to start asking those questions?
Well, because remember,
There's only one way to know if it worked is to see if it still works. But can we recreate?
But so going through different, I think, scans in video exploration, they're aware that there's a crack that runs through it. So this is not a functioning machine now. That's why it's probably not working, is because it's literally broken. Remember, because there was also...
Well, there was a cataclysm or something.
There was evidence that there was an explosion of some sort in one or several of the tunnels and chambers.
Oh, so you were saying basically if this was created, like you said, before the Younger Dryas, but after the last pole shift, that it was created in essence to throw up this protective net to somehow save us from the worst of it. Well, and that blew up.
Well, yeah, our last conversation, that was my one thought, because again, the way the lines coming off the pyramid as it wraps around the earth and aligning with all these other pyramids, the main one could be the power generator, and all these additional pyramids would be Wi-Fi extenders in a sense. But using that energy to, yes, build a protective grid that would keep others from coming here. Like maybe it was a cloaking device.
Maybe the smaller one was a capacitor.
But yeah,
literally so that you could have a steady current, because that's
maybe
how else do you do that? Like, who knows?
Well, again, I don't know. But yeah, so on the last time we talked, I was saying it could be a protective grid in that sense, whether it's a force field or it was something that, like we talked about, where you would ring the bells, would generate a tone that would bring you peace and you'd be whole and centered and one and all that good stuff. If the power generation from this going across all of those as a protective grid could have unified us as a people to protect us in that sense. But, like you're saying now, and I'm starting to think that that's a hell of a better idea, is what if it was Thoth as an interdimensional being wanting to come to this planet or be in this realm, needed a power source. So he created it, vibrated it into this realm because he couldn't be here, but he could think it into place. And then it turned on and it made this field of some sort.
That goes back to your theory. Yeah.
So that they could now come here. And now that's when they basically started building the city around it and everything else, and enslaved us or generated us to enslave us just so they can mine gold.
To create a force.
Like, dude, think about this.
Yeah,
what if we look at the pyramid as this amazing spiritual divine invention, and all it really was the start of capitalism on this planet? Because these interdimensional beings were like, oh, there's some. Well, how do we get there? Well, this is, we got to make a big power machine, and then we can turn it on, and then we can go in there and we can get the people and we can make them.
And power plant. It's just Springfield. It's just Springfield.
For an interdimensional civilization that came here to generate humanoids of some sort or animals that they could teach to mine gold for them. So this is literally like Avatar, but with a pyramid, and them generating us through science experiment where they're just like, finally, we got us a good monkey. Go get us gold.
Yeah, we found some hieroglyphs on the outside of this building here, and we deciphered it. It says gas and sip.
Right?
What?
But yeah, that's
you never know.
So I think either of these are viable options, because say this power generator was put up to be a protective field so they could mine the gold, so that no one else could see it. Like it almost was a cloaking device.
It seems like you're drawing from like every possible thing that we've heard.
Because think about it.
Story though.
But think about it. Why wouldn't it be?
Like back to Anunnaki, and it's like, is it the same race of people we're talking about?
Who knows? But that's what I'm saying. There's, to me, the more I look into the bigger picture across this wide spectrum, the more the coincidences start to establish a relative pattern. Why couldn't there have been?
But that's the edges of the program. You're not supposed to go there.
Maybe I'm transcending and crossing over. I don't fucking know.
That's where half your body gets stuck in the wall and you do that.
Like Philadelphia experiment. Get me out of here. Bro. But yeah, because I said earlier, we'll come back to it. The whole moon thing and lizard people and all that crap. What if the pyramid was powering up the moon and the moon was basically the force field generator or something to that degree? Or what if it was to cloak us from the lizard people that are supposedly stealing our energy, whether we're happy or angry or mad, but there's apparently more energy when
there's a lot of questions there too, because it's like, well, did it explode because of a cataclysm, or did
somebody break it?
Did it cause the actual, like, did somebody,
right?
Crank it up to a 12 and try to jam?
Because remember the story of there was the idea that Mars, and this is how we have the moon today. Mars, when there was a civilization there, had a moon, and the two different factions, one was on planet, one was on moon. There was a power generator of some sort out in the atmosphere, space as we call it, that was the power machine for everything. The one faction was attempting to blow the machine up so that the planet couldn't have its atmosphere and all that kind of stuff to basically kill them, but instead wound up just blowing a whole bunch of shit up, which killed Mars and destroyed the other moon, which is where we now get the asteroid belt. That was the moon that separated. It was theirs, not ours.
The Kuiper belt?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is a speculation because they hypothesized and then basically proved mathematically if you took the sum mass of that entire, all of those rocks, it would put together a moon that would have existed with Mars, which is why Mars did have water at one point and a full civilization. So going further, what if we're now in a repeat of that cycle, but here on Earth? What if it was this other race, interdimensional or not, that once that happened have now established here and it's going through again? So
the lizard people on the moon thing, right? Because this where you're getting a like hollow moon theory too, and the thing was built as a spacecraft, and that basically no other planetary body that we've actually inspected scientifically has had a moon that's as big as that is compared to us. Nowhere else.
As well as it doesn't rotate.
It doesn't actually have an elliptical orbit. It has a round or a circular orbit. And
it doesn't rotate itself. And it also rotates different direction than everything else. So while everything's going like clockwise, this goes counter without rotating on its own axis. And it's also way larger than any other.
It's kind of weird, yeah.
But again, that's also another part of the Mars story. So all of the people that were able to, from both factions, remove themselves from that moon as well as Mars as it was deteriorating, all of those spaceships that were able to leave, they basically, formed like Voltron and turned it into a planet, which is another moon, which explains the hollow moon idea because it's a giant space station. Yeah, man. So I said, all of this.
So it's just a thin layer of rocks and
it's just like old paint at this point. But that's what I'm saying. The idea that the pyramid as a power generator being of that size would create so much immense energy. There's so many things that you could speculate what the hell you would use that power for. And there's so many different stories as we've tried to gather information and pull it all together that they kind of lend their hands to this really fanciful science fiction that might actually be correct. There really could be all of these other interdimensional beings that we would call werewolves or ghouls or poltergeists that are now hidden because there's not this power generating machine to allow them to exist on a plane that we can perceive them.
So theory, we've been trying to create free energy for so long that now that's 2 times in our history we know that it's been shut down by the man.
Well, I mean, that's possible.
It was blown up, cracked, destroyed, and dismantled and sold for steel. I mean, I see some similarities. It's like, Bruce Lee, Brandon Lee, you know what I mean? Something's going on here. I don't know what.
What's behind that bush?
I think it's been like it's been a conspiracy all the way down.
Maybe that's why I said, maybe this is a giant
Redacted. Sorry.
Intergalactic capitalism gold mining scheme.
Intergalactic, planetary, or planetary intergalactic.
Both. Yeah, which that made me think. Irony: if Tesla actually created Wardenclyffe to generate this free energy, and in doing so, it did what the pyramid did and emitted this energy that allowed these beings to all of a sudden just like bloop, pop back into existence. But
that's
only
why since then,
but only in that, but only in that relative realm of, because it's not big enough that it's stretching across the entire planet. It's only like right there. It's localized to just around that tower. What if a sudden all of the you're starting to see like werewolves and the poltergeist where it's this ghost that you couldn't see before. It's like knocking over books and it's some, interdimensional nerd with glasses. He's like, they don't know it's me. Boom. Oh, hey, how are you? Crap, they can see me. All of a sudden, Casper just shows up. You're like, son of a bitch.
You got to turn this crap in your head into skits somehow. Like, you have to do this.
It's a good thing we got this on tape, man.
Because it's hard enough to follow just listening to you, but that would make a really funny skit.
Maybe we'll have to somehow or another animate this part of the conversation. I don't know. We'll see. Hit us in the comments.
Maybe we could do that. I can't. But there are people I've heard that could do this.
There are people, and they can do things.
Various, but I don't know. I cannot confirm or deny that fact.
Yeah, this is
about that time of night.
What?
One, and B.
This is why on the last episode I said I very much feel this is going to be a Terrence Howard situation where we're going to have to revisit this topic in and of itself.
Because you can't stay in your seat. Stay in your lane.
I mean, I'm not even going to.
I mean, these kind of conversations, they make the mind wander all over the place. I can't help myself.
Well, and that goes to something we've always talked about. That's why we're here.
We're talking about this, but what if?
That's why we're here. Is we ourselves have this childlike innocence of inquisitive nature, and we love to talk about things. So part of what we do here is we hope to inspire others. We want you at home to ask, to be inquisitive, but then have conversations, talk to other people, speculate, just even if it is a fun what if, a thought experiment.
Put down your phone. Put down your mobile device for a minute. I mean, unless you're just using it to watch us, obviously, but
or write stuff down
and talk to each other. It doesn't have to be serious, but it can be. Sometimes.
It can be sin-serious.
Sometimes it can be sin-serious.
Sincerely. And yes, I do also agree. It's probably time to
go now.
Wrap it up, B.
Wrap it up,
Stinks
B.
like sex in here, all that good stuff. Why did you do this?
Wrap it up, B.
No, wrap it up, B. He's like holding the box, and you just did you're...
Dude, you're fisting sometimes. I was just watching that video. It's messed up.
I'm
like, you're doing all kinds of stuff.
I don't even know. It has a mind of its own. But yeah, fam, we love this. This is part 2, apparently. Probably going to be 3 or 4. I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah, we're not very creative when it comes to topics.
But you can hit us in the comments. Tell us what you're liking, what you enjoyed. What parts of this conversation do you think has actual merit? Like, really could be, take it
tell us
beyond speculation. Tell us what?
Tell us we're stupid.
Well, you can do that too.
And that there's no science behind anything we're saying.
There is. Well, but
there's very little.
What is science? Reproducible information with a high consistency. That's all fact is.
I mean, the way things are changing and updating these days, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. It's like, it's not true now, but by the time we actually post this, suddenly it's like, no, this is big news.
I know, right? And then everybody's just like, holy crap. It's like, yeah, come on. We've been saying this for a while now. That's what we do. Come on.
Speculate. Redacted. Allegedly.
But yeah, hit us in the comments. Tell us what part you're into, how you would like us to get a little deeper on it. And yeah, I guess as always, good to yourself, good to everything else.
Much love.
Peace.
Yeah. What's it?
Because there's that one too.
Oh, you're
All right, well, now we gotta push all the buttons.
do we have to?
Yes.
All right. Okay.